to KMMU, and that's kmmu.org. That is Main Street Media, Utah. We're so happy to have you join us. This is the Liberty Mom Show. I'm your host, Dalane England. Liberty Moms are the original Secretaries of Defense. We are the real defenders of the home front. We are there when it comes to defending our families and our communities. And I'm so thrilled to have you with us. We are really excited. We have a great guest with us, Utah Republican Party Chair, Rob Axon. And I'm really grateful that he would come on because we have some really important issues facing the state of Utah, facing the Republican Party right now, and I suppose, frankly, facing the Democrat Party and the Constitution Party as well. But we're going to be talking about some issues that face all of Utahns that are extremely important. And before we do that, while we're waiting for Rob to join us, I wanted to just wish you a happy American Founders and Constitution Month. The legislature of Utah passed September and made a bill that this month of September is American Founders and Constitution Month. So for the entire month, we are celebrating the making of America. We're celebrating the founders who created it and this genius Constitution that they came up with. And the more that you study it, the more that you learn about it, the more you find it is incredible. And you learn to understand what American exceptionalism is. And it's not that Americans are exceptional. We're regular people like everyone else in the world. American exceptionalism is that our Constitution and our country, the design, the principles that it's based on are exceptional. And they did create an exceptional country. And the only people who think our country is not exceptional and not really amazing and standing out and produces more freedom for more people in the entire world and more prosperity for everyone in the world, the only one who would disagree with that are people that are either ignorant and have been taught lies, or people who want to take our freedom away from us and want to be in charge and in control and rule over us. Otherwise, if you look at the facts and you look at what's the history and what's true, you'll see America is an exceptional country. And I feel very grateful. I feel very fortunate and grateful and humbled that I get to live in the United States of America. And I love teaching these vital principles of America. And, speaking of which, I like to invite everyone to a festival that is coming up next week, Freedom's Light Festival. It is on September 19th, 20th, and 21st of 2024. And that's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So what we do is we recreate colonial America and even prior to colonial America, but we try to recreate at Bountiful Park, 400 North, 200 West in Bountiful. So at Bountiful Park, we create this colonial America where you get to meet the people who made America. You get to meet the founding fathers, a lot of them that you've heard of, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock, John Adams, but you also get to meet men that you might not have heard of, but they did amazing things and they made every sacrifice so that their posterity, which is you, would be able to live in freedom. And then you also get to meet many of the founding mothers. Yes, Abigail Adams, some of the founding mothers that you have heard of, but also Lydia Dara, Emily Geiger, Betty Zane, many founding mothers that also made great sacrifices, regular people that did extraordinary things for their posterity so that you could live in freedom and appreciate what a great opportunity we have in these American freedoms. The freedoms really that God gave us, the rights that God gave us, we have a huge responsibility to respect, to honor, and to know these freedoms. And the founding fathers said, if we do not know what our freedoms are, we cannot protect them. We cannot guard them. So we'd like to invite everyone to attend Freedom's Light Festival. It's free. It's open to the public. During Thursday and Friday, we do have a lot of schools for field trips. They come and attend. And as I said, they get to meet the founding fathers and mothers, but they also get to learn through little, just 15-minute stations where they get to learn what the 3/5 clause of the Constitution is and learn why it matters and why it's so powerful and why it was put in there designed to help end slavery. And you get to hear both sides of it and why it's such an important clause in the Constitution. You get to learn the difference between a democracy and a republic and why it matters, and where in the Constitution it requires the states to provide a specific kind of government. You get to learn about the different powers and the different separation of powers and why that's so vital and important. You get to learn about the 7 articles in the Constitution. You get to learn something about them. It's engaging. You get to do it through activities and through actually experiencing it. A lot of the venues, you get to actually become one of the delegates, and you get to become a delegate. What would you do? Here's what you're facing. Here's the decision we have to make. Where do you stand? How would you vote? You get to actually decide after learning about the Constitution if you want to sign it. If you were one of the delegates, would you sign the Constitution? Would you put your John Hancock on it? You also get to learn about the Bill of Rights, the 10 Bill of Rights, the 10 First Amendments that teach us about, that literally delineate some of our most valued rights that are given to us by God. And we teach like why those are so valuable, what they are, why they're so important. And we really also want to teach what you can do to guard them, because you are the guardian of your liberty, how each of us can do something to guard those liberties. And so we also have some really exciting venues, which are some of the artisans. So you get to learn the way of life in colonial America. You actually get to use the printing press, a perfect replica of Isaiah Thomas, signer of the Constitution, of the Declaration. You get to actually use the printing press that he used to print the first copy of the Declaration. And so he was one of the founding fathers. He had to, numerous times, he was able to escape because the British obviously wanted to destroy the printing press. That was the old-fashioned, or the colonial times, what we would call maybe social media, Facebook, Instagram, even email. It was the way that the founders connected with each other and communicated with each other. It's how people, the colonial Americans, found out what was going on and learned the issues. Well, the British were not too keen on many of the articles that Isaiah Thomas printed. He really was so courageous. Like, talk about courage. He did some pretty amazing things, really out there. Like, you would go, who has the guts to do that? And then he had to literally escape within seconds with his printing press and his life from the British that were after him. So he is really fun and engaging. Do not miss meeting Isaiah Thomas. He is fantastic. Then you also, you get to use it and learn from him and print something on it that you get to keep and take home. That's super fun. You actually can make a candle the way the colonists made candles. You get to dip a candle, costs $1, but you get to take that candle home with you, get to keep it, your very own. You learn all about making candles, and then you get to actually make one. You can have your name written in calligraphy. It is beautiful. We have amazing calligraphers. They are just incredibly talented, and I'm really excited to take a class because I want to learn how to do that myself. And you get to learn about a Cooper. You probably go, what's a Cooper? So a Cooper is someone, you have to come and find out, but a Cooper is someone who can make a bucket out of wood using no nails and no glue and make it into pieces and do it so perfectly shaped and so tight that it will hold water and it will not drip or leak, because wood is so amazing. You come and learn how they can do that, watch them actually making one, and then like how it is that could even happen. It's pretty interesting. And we also get to meet veterans. You get to meet some veterans that have literally put their life on the line for our country. They have written a blank check and said, I am willing to die that we can protect our country and that we can continue to live free. You'll get to meet them and hear their stories. And they also have a Jeep, which is quite fun. And you also get to immigrate to the United States of America through Ellis Island. So you literally go through the process from the beginning. You get off the ship, you enter Ellis Island, you go through the entire process, everything that they did, and you get to take the citizenship test. Now, the citizenship test is 100 questions. You're going to get to take 10 of them, and we set people up for success. So we are going to make sure that you know everything that you need to know in order to do well and pass the test. And then when you pass it, you get to take the oath of citizenship. Now, if you're like me, I was born in America. I did not take the oath of citizenship to become a citizen. I was handed to me on a silver platter, and I'm a natural born citizen, so I never took the citizenship test. But there is an underlying understanding of a covenant that we make when we're born in America. This is a covenant land. We make that covenant. So we are under that oath. And so it's nice to know, it's nice to hear it, and it's really a neat opportunity to be able to take that oath yourself with the understanding that you have after immigrating to America and after passing the citizenship test. You get a little sticker that says, I am a true American. So those are some of the really fun things on the stage. We have singing, so you get to go learn a really quick song, 15 minutes, learn a fun, really engaging, fun song. Hopefully you'll remember, and take a break, eat lunch, and sing. Singing it's just wonderful. I love music. It just changes your spirit. It just makes your day. I just love really great music. It's just incredible. We also have the Sons of the American Revolution. So they will be there on Saturday. We have some soldiers that will be there on Thursday and Friday, but on Saturday, we will have the Sons of American Revolution, and they are so sharp in their uniforms, and they will lead a march around. So you get to anybody who wants to. It's not just for children, adults, whoever wants to gets to join the march and march around the colonial America with them. And that is just kind of a fun thing. But one of the things we have special this year, first time, is we have a family festival, and that is on Friday night from 4 to 8. And so I'd encourage all families to come to this. If you can't come on Saturday, if you can't come on Friday night, but if you can, I'm just telling you, it's a real treat. In addition to all of the 45 stations that we have, different experiences, activities, games that there are to do, there's more than 45, but at least that. In addition to that, we're going to have like a Go Fish Pond. We're also going to have a, like you can dress up in colonial clothes and get your picture taken. We also have face painting, so anybody that wants to have their face painted. So there'll be those extra things, but the highlight of the evening is when we have Gold Star wife Jenny Taylor, the widow of Brent Taylor, who was killed in Afghanistan. She will be speaking to us on the price paid for freedom. She's engaging, wonderful, and you'll really enjoy her. Very inspiring and uplifting, and it's great. Even kids really enjoy her. She has, I think, 8 children, and so she's great with kids, and she knows how to speak to them in a way that's very interesting. So she'll be really fun. And then we have Professor Gov Allen. Now, when I say professor, I don't want you to go, oh my gosh, that sounds boring, because sometimes that can be very true. But this professor is so amazing. He is Isaiah Thomas at Freedom's Light Festival. And he is such, not just a great storyteller, but he knows how to teach you. His talk is on the 5 lost virtues of America. And I promise, no matter how old you are or no matter how young you are, you will love this. It is, I think every American needs to hear it. It's absolutely wonderful. It is so interesting and so good. You're just absolutely going to love it. So I hope that you will come on Friday night, Family Festival. You can come anytime you want, but those extra things will start at 4. They'll go to 7. Then we'll have our speakers. And then at 8 o'clock, we will have a dance. And we're having a contra dance caller. So come and dance, because you'll be taught dance steps that are for all ages. And it makes it so that everyone of all ages can participate and join in. And it is really, really fun. And we also have a live band. And so it is going to be a really fun, real upbeat, real positive, real fun. And it's just really going to be wonderful to have in this day when things can seem a little bit dark and gloomy and difficult. Come, free dance, live band, and really, really fun dance, and free speakers. And all of these things are engaging. The food, we do have food booths, so the food will be available where you can purchase your food. And we also have like the candle and the face painting will cost $1, but most everything else is free. And so the event is free, and we just invite everyone to come. It isn't just for kids. Sometimes people think, oh, it's just for kids. It absolutely is not. It's more geared to teenagers and adults, but we know how to gauge it for every age. So when we have a group of younger people, we will talk and explain and teach in a way that they understand and find it engaging. But it is fun for everyone. So I hope that you will all plan to attend. Again, it is Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, September 19th, 20th, and 21st. And that is at Bountiful Park, 400 North, 200 West. Our website is freedomslight.us. So that's freedoms with an S, light, like light, .us, like the United States. So you can go on the website and all the information is there. You can get our email, phone number, if you want to call or text, ask any questions that you might have. If you still want to register your school, we will squeeze you in. We're pretty full, but we do have a little bit of a place where we could squeeze in 1 or 2 more schools. So anyone that would like to register, feel free to contact us and we'll get you in there. And of course, families, homeschool groups, just show up, just come and join. The beginning is on the north end of the park, and there's a welcome station. And the reason that you want to go there, because we like to welcome you. We will give you a map, or you can do a QR code of a map, so you kind of know everything that's there and kind of give you a summary and review. And we really explain, we just give you a little introduction and just give you ask some questions that help you think and consider and help you realize, honestly, how amazing America is. We are so blessed. This is such an amazing country, and you get to learn the genius of the Constitution. So while we're waiting for Rob to join us, he is very busy, and we're very grateful that he would take time to join us. As I said, he is the chair of the Utah Republican Party, and he really is kind of in an interesting position because he represents the party. He has to deal with leadership in the legislature and all the legislators. He's dealing with the members of the party. He deals with the engaged members of the party, which are the ones who really are educated and involved and really know what is happening and understand what's really going on. They're more engaged, and so they're more informed. That makes sense. So he deals with the state central committee. He deals with delegates who go to convention, who do a lot of vetting, and then go to convention and vet the candidates. And then he's dealing with, your general populace of regular registered Republicans. So he has a lot that he deals with. And this is not a paid position. This is a volunteer position. He's very busy. So I know he was in a meeting, and he should be joining us any minute. What we're going to be talking about, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick introduction about that, because there are a lot of issues right now. But you may or may not know, and there's a good chance you probably don't know unless you're heavily involved. We are going to have this year, in this ballot, on the presidential ballot, there will be an initiative, there will be a question, there'll be a vote, I'm putting it up to a vote, to make an amendment to our Utah Constitution. And, we don't take those things lightly. When you amend the Constitution, it's harder to amend it, and it's also harder to unamend it, which would be an amendment. So it's harder to change it back if you decide, not a good move, let's change it back. It's hard. It's hard to change the Constitution. But I think this is really important. This is a really important change. This is a very important amendment, in my opinion, and I would be very happy to talk to anyone about it. In fact, I'd be more than delighted to. I want to. If you're thinking that we shouldn't support this, please listen to Rob Axon. Please listen to Greg Hughes, former Speaker of the House. Please feel free to call me and talk to me about it. I really think that once you understand what is happening, you will definitely love it and be all in. So I'm just trying to think of what else we can talk about. Like, there's not a million things. I just was planning on having us start before now. So, well, the one thing I do love to talk about is the Constitution. As I said, it's quite genius. I would ask everyone, well, I definitely can talk about some of the events that are coming up. So one thing that's coming up on Thursday, September 27th, is a live reading of the Constitution. And so I would invite everyone to join. Now, the people that are going to read it are going to be at the Capitol in the Gold Room, but you can just jump online and join online and hear, and you can read through the Constitution yourself. And what I would recommend when you do that is to make some notes or some highlights, some areas where I go, what does that mean? Well, how does that affect me? Like things that you might have questions about, you're not quite sure what that is, make some highlights. Again, I would love to talk to you about it. And then you can do a little research. But it's one thing to read the Constitution. It's another to really understand it and to really learn the application of it. So I would invite everyone to read it and then take his Constitution class. Get involved. Find ways to learn more about it because it's amazing. And there's so many free Constitution classes that you can take. So there's lots of opportunities there. And they can be in person and they can be online. So you can do it. You can do it the way you want to do it. So I plan that Thursday, September 27th, and it is at 10 a.m. And you can go on and just join the link and watch from there. And I just wanted to let you know how important it is because 15 years ago, an Ivy League university did a survey of the Congress at that time. And in this survey, they only asked one question. Do you want to guess what that question was? That question was, have you, as a member of Congress, ever read the Constitution? Well, I challenge you, what percentage of congressmen and women admitted that they had never read the Constitution? They took a sacred oath to uphold it, but they've never read it. How much can they know about it? Do they know Article 1, Section 8? As Congress, they're limited to the powers, the very 20 very specific powers that are mentioned articulately and numerically. Article 1, Section 8 says this is what you can do as Congress. And then it says in Clause 18, if it's not listed, hands off, you can't do it. That's more common vernacular, but that's what it says. You can't pass a law that isn't regarding one of those 20 things unless it is necessary and proper. So yeah, it says that the Congress is supposed to establish a postal service. It doesn't say they're supposed to establish a post office or postal roads. But is it necessary and proper in order to establish a postal service to establish a post office and postal roads? I would have to agree, yes, that would be necessary and proper. So in Article 1, Section 8, Clause, I can't remember if it's 17 or 18, it literally gives power, the necessary and proper. They can only do those 20 things and that which is necessary and proper to do those 20 powers that are given. It lists that they are to have a military, specifically speaks of the Navy and the Army. It does not speak of the Air Force or the Space Force for obvious reasons, but we have expanded to those things. But we have to have military stations, and that would be necessary and proper in order to have a military, right? Okay, fair enough. But it's very limited to those 20 things. So I ask you, do you think our Congress ever goes and violates the Constitution by doing laws, proposing and passing laws that are not listed in their specific powers? Yeah, they do all the time. Believe me, I've been watching, and they do. And that's why it's important to learn about the Constitution. So back to the question, what percentage of the Congress 15 years ago admitted they had never read, not to mention studied, the Constitution? I would love to hear your best guess. I wish I could hear you. And I ask people this all the time. I ask my students every year. And usually they'll guess 50% and think that's extremely high, but it is much higher than that. It is 80%. So that 80% admitted they'd never studied it, or never read it, but that doesn't account for those who are too embarrassed to admit that they hadn't. And so, we really don't even know. It's probably worse than, but 80% is bad enough. We'll just stick with that. That's pretty horrible. So we invite you to join us on a weekly basis to learn a principle of the Constitution every week so that you can be engaged and learn. Well, one of the things that we're going to teach at Freedom Site Festival is the 3/5 clause. That's in Article 1, and it's in Section 2. And you might not really know what I'm talking about, but then when I start talking about, maybe you will. The reason that we're teaching this at Freedom Site Festival is because I have attorneys all the time say things to me like, well, I don't know why you revere that document. It's terrible because it's so racist. I mean, right in the Constitution, it says that slaves, or they'll even say black people, which is not true because lots of black people in America were not slaves, but that slaves were the founders only considered them as 3/5 of a person. They didn't even consider them as an entire person. So when someone says that, something like that to me, it makes me understand that they do not understand the 3/5 clause. They clearly do not understand it. They have not read, they might not have read the Constitution where it states it, but they definitely haven't read the Federalist Papers or the Anti-Federalist Papers or any commentary on the reasons why they came up with it and how they came up with it. So I hope that you'll still go to that station at Freedom Site Festival, but I'm really excited since we have a minute. I am going to go ahead and give you some ideas about the 3/5 clause. So here we are, early America. Let's say you are one of the delegates. Let's say you're from one of the northern states, because really none of us want to be one of the delegates from the southern states with the current understanding that we have now. We all want to be from the north. But we are going to welcome our guest, and then I invite you to attend Freedom Site Festival and learn about the 3/5 clause. And I am so delighted to welcome our guest, Chair Rob Axon. Rob, thank you so much for joining us. We're so pleased you could be with us. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Always good to be with you, my friend.
Thank you. And what's really awesome is we can see you and we can hear you. So this is really great. Technology is in our favor today.
Right?
It's working.
All the joys.
All the joys, yes. Okay, so Rob, I've kind of talked a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So I've introduced you already and said what really a difficult job. I didn't mention that you must be insane to even run and do this job. I didn't mention that. I figured I'd leave that part out. It's self-evident. But I did introduce you, and I talked about what we're going to talk about today, because there's a lot of things up for our state and particularly the Republican Party. But we're talking about this constitutional amendment that's about initiatives. And that is as much as I've said. So do you want to introduce why we're doing this, which I feel I've already been open, and I am 100% in favor of this initiative. I'm not leaving that for anybody to question.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And yeah, like I said, it's great to be with you, Dalane, and you've always been there in the trenches, really fighting for principle. And I've always appreciated that. And I've seen it consistently for years from you. And that's one of the reasons, really getting to your question of why would I have been crazy enough to run for party chair. The reality is it's twofold. One, I think our state and our party are filled with really good people. We have phenomenal Utahns all over our great state that care about the direction of our country and what we need to do to make sure that we are preserving our future for our kids. You then couple that with the fact that I firmly believe that our party, when it is operating at the best that it can and when it is meeting its potential, can be a force multiplier for so much good, and especially those conservative principles that I believe in. And ultimately, there's Republicans of all walks of life, right? Some are to the left of me, some are to the right of me, whatever it may be. It's a big tent. I believe that our party can be a big tent and can invite a lot of people in with a lot of different ideas. And I believe that we can do that without ever watering down our principles. And I I think that's the core thing that you can do is you can allow for people that maybe are just waking up to politics or to what it means to be a Republican or to be involved, but you don't have to compromise what our platform is, what our principles are, and what our core beliefs are. That the founding all the way through to modern times, our founding has served us well as a country, our system of government, and within the Republican Party, our principles and platform have served us well. So
and they're aligned with the Constitution, which is why I am registered as Republican. Is not because I think the Republican Party is superior. I think the platform is by far superior. It is right aligned with the Constitution.
That's exactly right. And I've said this before. In fact, I said this at an event that we had, or a meeting that we had this last weekend with leaders of the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. I am a Republican because of the principles and platform that the Republican Party has. If suddenly we veered away from the beliefs that we have, my commitment and fidelity is not to the Republican Party, it's to those core principles. And thankfully, luckily, those principles have a home in the Republican Party that I don't see them having a home in certainly the Democrat Party. And so that's a non-starter for me. The principles, platform, and beliefs that we espouse as Republicans are in line with those Judeo-Christian values that we've had as a country. They're in line with our founding. They're certainly in line with what I believe is the opinion and needs of the vast majority of Utahns, the vast majority of families here in our state. And so it's something that's important for us to engage in and fight for. This gets us to the topic that we're talking about today, this ballot initiative. It's part of why I came out as strongly as I have of calling for support for Amendment D, and initially even calling for the legislature to take action after this question was raised in this new interpretation of our Constitution. Our state Constitution was raised by the state Supreme Court just 6 weeks ago or whatever it may be. And that is, we have now opened up to this space where those principles that we all believe in are now up to the highest bidder. And it's now whoever can leverage the most money. And generally speaking, that's going to be out of state, sometimes even out of country funds, by a wealthy individual who wants to come to Utah and tell us what we need to believe and how we need to behave and what our system of government or structure needs to look at. And I find that to be adamantly and absolutely inappropriate.
100%. Yeah, and that is literally what it has done. It's like when the legislature cannot tweak or fix with very few. I mean, there are some very prescripted abilities for the legislature to do that, but they're very rare and very difficult. Otherwise, the legislature can't fix an initiative. And what I think all of our listeners need to understand is when you do an initiative, which is what you do in a democracy, democracies are run by initiatives. A republic is run by representatives that we elect that dig in and get in and learn both sides and really learn the issues. And the beauty of that system is that a bill, as you know, when a bill starts, I've never seen a bill start and end the same, because as it goes through all the different processes from the Rules Committee to the House Committee to the floor to the Senate Committee to the floor, it's got all these hands, all these eyes, all these people who are tweaking it. So as a bill is made, we have so much ability sometimes to destroy the bill, but hopefully to fix the bill. But we make all these changes and then pass it. And then if we decide, you know what, we need to further tweak that, we have the ability to do it. Now with an initiative, once you do an initiative, you can't change it. Every word has to stay. And we look at the last 3 initiatives that we have had that have been, well, in my personal, not at all humble opinion, they've been a nightmare. They're totally horrible. Even the marijuana bill, regardless of where you stand on it, the maker of that, Connor Boyack, wanted to make some changes. He worked with the legislators to make changes because he's like, this is the first time I've ever written an initiative or a bill. And yeah, I did. There were unintended consequences. Let's fix it. And now with this ruling from the judge, the Supreme Court of Utah, the judges, legislators cannot change or tweak or fix initiatives with very few exceptions, very, very
Yep.
small prescriptive.
That's exactly right. And think how inefficient that is for
Yes.
our system of government, that we do want things to be deliberative and slow. There's a reason for example, on the federal level that you have the House that is quickly reactionarily available to their constituents. They're up for election every 2 years. One of the reasons that the Senate is every 6 years is to allow a more degree of discernment and to slow the process down so that you have more transparency to things and you have daylight on things. Like you said, that happens here in our state legislature as well. As things go through the process, you have more input, and generally speaking, that improves the bill. However, there is a thing where an improved bill still has some flaws and you need to make some adjustments. Or you have unintended consequences, like you talked about, where we just didn't foresee something would be enacted in such a way or have a ramification that caused issue A, B, or C. And you can revisit that and make adjustments to the law and to the statute. With a direct initiative, you don't have the ability to quickly respond. And with this new interpretation that has caused all of this confusion and concern, is you now have a very slow process. The only remedy you would have in many cases is to run a brand new initiative. And so how efficient is that if there's small fixes, but important fixes that need to be made? Well, it's likely not going to happen. And so then we are encumbering ourselves as a state with policies that are not best serving the people of Utah. What if there's a horrible situation that is a 50-50 issue? Well, now you're leaving it up to the highest bidder. It's truly going to be down to the dollar amount. And so you're now going to ask the people of Utah to fix the situation in the law, and their only means to do so is to go through an initiative process. What if you have an outside group? And none of these are speculative. This is dollar amounts that we know are being talked about. What if you have somebody who's willing to deploy $10 million here in Utah to retain a ballot initiative that had already passed? Well, retaining things is a lot easier than passing things. It's already going to be easier to pass things with a lot of money. So they get that past the finish line, and now all they have to do is play a little bit of defense. Well, why do the people of Utah have to come up with millions and millions of dollars in order to deploy a strategy to compete with outside interests, some wealthy individual from California or some business from New York or some nonprofit from wherever? Like, this is very concerning. And, you know, with the legislature, what they are trying to do with this ballot initiative is also to put a prohibition on foreign funds.
Yes.
Should be common sense. But right now, what the Supreme Court of Utah has allowed to have happen, if we don't put this prohibition in place, is the ability for China, the ability for Russia, the ability for corporate interests in Europe to come and decide and dictate through spending money to convince the people of Utah to do something. And as we know, like, the highest dollar amount tends to get the most press, and you may confuse people to pass something that then the decision is being made not by Utahns, but by people from out of state or out of country.
Absolutely, Rob. I mean, people just need to think about what are the real consequences of this, unintended or intended. Either one, the reality, the bottom line is the same. The results will be the same. If we do not pass this, anyone can come in here to the state of Utah with any amount of money. And how could we ever, we couldn't even stand up to the boundaries proposal, which I did not agree with. I thought that it was very flawed. And I think a lot of Utahns voted for it because they didn't understand it, because we as citizens couldn't come up with enough money to counter the big dollars about, you know, how to redo our boundaries here and give that power to those who aren't necessarily in our best interest. And we don't want to, and we don't have the funds, and we don't want to have to spend all of our money countering these other influences. It's a really big deal. It's huge. I mean, to me, we're going to go from a republic or a semi-republic, because in my personal opinion, we shot a lot of holes in our republic through SB 54. But we're going to go straight to a democracy. We're going to turn our state into a democracy. And Article 4, Section 4 requires the federal government, requires them to provide a republic form of government. So I see this as completely unconstitutional.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And you look, um, there is a call to action here as a side note. We as
Yes.
citizens all need to do a better job of educating ourselves not only on candidates but on issues, so that we are not in a place where collectively we can be swayed by a commercial or by a short sound bite or by those political donations, whether they're going to a candidate and convincing us to vote for that candidate or this candidate, or to a cause or a ballot initiative. So we all collectively need to be better stewards of the sovereignty that we have as citizens here in this state and in this country. But that being said, the reality is where it is. So as we are incrementally doing better of asserting ourselves, we also should not be putting Utah into a place where, again, we are letting Utah and the policies that affect our state and our people be decided by non-Utahns. I believe Utah should always be deciding by Utahns and for Utahns what best approach to take moving forward. The other thing that I think these justices missed, and their interpretation here did a disservice to, is the fact that they have not recognized the bifurcated power that the people have under our Constitution. And so under our state constitution, we are told that we are allowed to have this ballot initiative. Well, that's one opportunity that we have to express our desire in the law. And you have another equal piece to that where we are able to express our will for the law through our elected representatives in the spirit of what it means to be a citizen in a constitutional republic. So you have those two co-equal ways that we as individuals and as citizens get to involve ourselves and affect the legislative process and code. What their interpretation has done, which again is a new interpretation. For over 100 years, we've been dealing with this where the interpretation had worked just fine. They 6 weeks ago made a change. So anybody else thinking that, oh, look, the legislature and some Utahns are trying to change the ballot initiative process through Amendment D. No, we're not. We are trying to return to what this interpretation was and actually strengthen and improve and make easier that process for going about a ballot initiative. But again, it used to be these two paths that you had to express the sovereignty that we have as citizens. These justices have now said that one expression of our power through the ballot initiative supersedes and completely limits or curtails our ability to express ourselves through our elected representatives. That is a disservice. And so if anybody here is trying to take away from the people of Utah their rights and their ability, I would argue that it's the group of justices that just passed a ruling that limited one expression of our power that we had prior.
That is so well said, Rob. That's an excellent explanation and very good point. Very valid. Okay. Are you okay to take some calls?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to put the phone number out there. If you'd like to talk to Chair Rob Axon about this initiative, we want to stay focused on this issue. The call-in number is 385-899-2134. 385-899-2134. So you're listening to KMMU, Main Street Media, Utah. We're also on YouTube, Rumble, X, and our website is kmmu.org. So anybody who would like to talk to Chair Rob, feel free to call in. While people are dialing, while they do that, I just want to mention one other thing, because I've heard people that are against this initiative. They say, well, the legislature can still make changes, but really very, very few. And even if they are within the prescription of when the legislature can make those, do you think the maker of the initiative will sue the legislature if they mess with their initiative?
Oh, absolutely. They've shown themselves to do that already. And I think you'll see more and more of that because they know that the legislature would have to be very specific on where they're making those adjustments. The other piece is in the ruling, it laid out that they would not be able to make adjustments when the system or function of government is changed. Well, they've just given the roadmap to anybody pushing these ballot initiatives that all they'll have to do is make sure that you've incorporated a change to the system of government into your ballot initiative, and now the legislature can't do anything on it. And so I think it's disingenuous on the part of the judiciary here, and disingenuous on those who really know what they're talking about and are educated on this when they claim that, oh, this is being overblown.
Tracy, are you there?
No, that's not the case.
I
I'm going
agree.
to
And I
drop
do
you
think
into the studio,
I think we
and
have
Dr. Rob, ask him some good questions. It's Dwayne. How are you?
I will. Good. How are you, Dwayne?
I am good. Hang on. I'm gonna drop you in. I'm gonna mute you for just a second. Actually, you'll hear them talking, and I'll let them know you're here. So.
Oh, we hear them, so we're good.
we
to
hear
go.
them. Go right ahead, Dwayne. We can hear both of you. Go ahead and bring them on, Dwayne.
Here you go. This is Tracy. So hang on. You guys probably were hearing me talk to her. Sorry about that. I should have muted.
Hey, it's okay.
That's okay.
We're all
We
friends.
can handle it. Yeah.
Tracy, are you there?
Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tracy. Go ahead.
So, all right, I have a question. It's kind of related to both the initiative process and the SB 54. So when you have a government or a legislature that is so wrong that they won't pass anything against this SB 54 to change it, what do you suggest that people should do? How do they peacefully petition their government?
Yeah, great question, Tracy, and good to hear from you. I am a firm believer that SB 54 is flawed law. I've been on the record on this. I think it has created conflict that was unnecessary, and I think it's been a solution in search of a problem, and it's forced an issue that has created disconnects between not only candidates and elected officials with the folks that they want to represent, but also the ability of delegates and citizens to engage in the process of talking about ideas without being so swayed by whoever has the most money to articulate their case. The concerns that I have for ballot initiatives going to the highest bidder, I actually have those same concerns in the political process of how we campaign or elect officials. I like the ideas and the systems that allow for candidates, whoever they may be, whether they're incumbents or challengers, to be available to and accountable to the people that they are seeking to represent. So SB 54, I think, is a major step in the wrong direction. And so here we are, 13 years later or so, or I guess, what is it, 11 years later since it's been implemented. So here we are, we're dealing with that. And there's been this ebb and flow of how we as a party and how we as Utahns have had to navigate that process. And some things we've done okay. In many places, it's been very difficult. So I think the best place where people can petition their government is through the ballot box. I highly encourage every Republican, every citizen to educate themselves on not just the issues, but educate themselves on the candidates. And we have some phenomenal Republican candidates. I'll speak more for the Republican Party candidates. I don't know the Democrat candidates as well as I know the Republicans. But, we have wonderful Republicans that
step up. To your point right now, you're talking about being educated about the issues. And I'm very educated about SB 54, and there was 2 court cases that the Republicans actually took up, and those court cases ruled SB 54 was okay because the nominee could still happen at the first level of getting your nominee, electing your nominee, and that was through convention. And even the Utah Supreme Court ruled that back then, and even the 10th Circuit said, yes, you can still get your nominee at convention. But for some reason, our government and our representatives and our party don't stand up for candidates that actually were elected at convention. So when you tell me about issues about the initiative, another thing that people should understand is the ruling of a case is on one initiative. It doesn't mean it's all initiatives. It was that type of initiative that ruling applied to. They felt because it was a boundary issue, the initiative, and those boundaries happen to apply to those who represent us. And in our Constitution, we always believed, or it was always said that the people had the power and that they had it so much that they could reform their government. And so this court case, they said, this is a way to reform your government because it applies to those who represent you. And you should never make a law based on a ruling from a court, because court cases change in the wind. They get overturned all the time. So making a law in reaction to something you don't agree with that a court case did will always make bad law.
Well, something you might do, Rob, is give our listeners just a Reader's Digest view of SB 54. Just a quick description, because some of our listeners don't know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, no, happy to. So SB 54, it was a state law passed, like I said, a little over a decade ago, that established change to our election law. So prior to SB 54, each political party had its nominating process. So we went through our process to nominate and determine who among our candidates would represent our respective parties. SB 54 established a dual path, or a second path, that allows for candidates to make their way through that campaign and political process and gain access to the ballot separate from going through the political party. It also allows for people to do both. So instead of one path, you now have two paths, and you've given people the ability to pick and choose or do both. And again, I firmly believe that they were a solution looking for a problem. The problem was not, or the system was not flawed. It was not broken, and it's created conflict, because you then have some of this confusion that our caller has talked about. And this is where the challenge is for the political parties. So the political parties have our process, and we adhere to our process, but then state law and federal law, of course, are those that we have to adhere to. And so there is now this conflict in state law that is not matched up with the political parties. It certainly doesn't match up with where I think that our nominating authority should be expressed. So that has created conflict, but
because it's actually to seek the nomination, and the first level you seek the nomination, even if you chose both avenues by gathering signatures or convention, your first opportunity to seek that Republican Party's nomination is the first step at convention. And once it's awarded, the job has been filled. And that's why those court cases and those judges said, there's nothing wrong with it, party. It's constitutional, because the Utah Republican Party was the only one a party to that action. And that went all the way up to the 10th Circuit. So I do think we need to be truthful when we're teaching people about the SB 54 and issues like that. This is why, I agree with you that we need to be more informed, but we also make sure that we're actually portraying correct information. And those court cases can go be reviewed, and see, that is why it came back saying SB 54 was constitutional, because the party could still get its nomination at the first level.
Correct. And the point that you're not bringing up here is the party's position was not fully defended at the 10th Circuit, which is why we had a petition to the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, the Utah Republican Party did not have certiorari granted. We were not able to fully defend our case. And so that question is left in limbo. It's left answered at that 10th Circuit that did not fully go our way. But to your point, that
individual to the point.
Just a sec. Let me finish this one off, though, Tracy, because I think this is an important part to what you were talking about. So under state law right now, and consistent with our party documents, the Utah Republican Party and any other political party that engages with a caucus convention system could do this as well. You have your state convention. We had ours on April 27th. You then have, under state law, on the calendar, it fell on Monday the 29th. So that was under statute when we had to inform the state of Utah and the elections office what our results were. So I certified those results on April 29th as the chairman of the Utah Republican Party. And so I put forward, there were 4 categories that I put forward. There were those who won their seat by acclamation. So they were either not challenged or if they had a challenger, the challenger was only going through that signature path. So they were not involved at the convention at all. So they were those who won by acclamation. The second category were those who ran a race, and 2 people came out of convention because of the threshold of the delegate vote was not met, necessary to only send on 1. So the top 2 vote recipients advanced. And so in that section, I advanced each of the 2 candidates in those races. Now, keep in mind, again, this is only candidates who qualified through the convention process. The signature path process, I have nothing to do with. That's not the path that I've ever supported. So you advance the 2 in those cases if they qualified through the function of the convention. The third category that we we have to nominate, or not nominate, but we have to ratify the appointment of a lieutenant governor's candidate in the case of an LG running as a running mate for the governor. And so at the time in April, it was Lane Bangeter was the individual who was named by our convention winner in the governor's race, which is Phil Lyman. And so Lane Bangeter was advanced by ratification. So his name was also included in there. Obviously, later he stepped away from that, and a different individual was put in, but that was the name that I put forward on April 29th. The fourth category, in all of those races where we had a candidate who met that percentage threshold requisite to be named as the nominee of the Utah Republican Party, and we had a number of those in some congressional races, in the governor's race, in the Senate race. So we had a number of those candidates. And in those cases, those candidates were certified as the Republican nominee on April 29th. The challenge that we have, and this is one of the reasons where SB 54, I think, is unnecessarily confrontational, and it creates these points of conflict, is we put forward those names, but then state election law deals with it differently. And so then, consistent with not only state election law,
the court cases,
that's your interpretation of it, Tracy, and I wish no, that's your interpretation of it, but I have to abide by state law, and I have to abide by our party constitution. So
right. So are you saying that the lieutenant governor just went against the 10th Circuit and the 2 lower courts in Utah, the district courts? Are you saying that she went against?
I'm not here to speak for. I'm not here to speak for the state elections office. I'm speaking towards what I have authority to do. I firmly believe that you have to act within the jurisdiction that you have, and I fully implemented with the jurisdiction that I have where I could. I don't get to decide the implementation of election law. That is up to the state and up to the courts. So where there may be a concern on that front, there are other directions and other places where there is jurisdiction to do that. But the other piece that I had to abide by is under our state constitution, or excuse me, our state party constitution. It specifically says that we will advance and adhere to state election law. So again, where election law, there's a question about it, we would go somewhere else. So I think we've hammered out this conversation, Tracy. You and I have points of disagreement, and that's okay. We also have a lot of points of agreement, and that's okay. But
we have most points of agreement, and I really appreciate that. Is a great question, Tracy, and one that is not finished that we need to resolve. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I do think that this conversation needs to go on. Thank you so much for calling in, Rob. Thank you so much for being on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dalane.
The takeaway here, you've done an excellent job explaining the constitutional amendment. The takeaway here is once you violate correct principle, which SB 54 is a huge violation of our republic. Once you violate that principle, it's so much more difficult to get back and to get on. And that's really where we are right now. But I do think it's really important, and I understand 100%. I understand the frustration of Tracy and those who are in agreement with Tracy, where like, why would I want to continue to support the legislature who has not fixed in a decade, haven't fixed SB 54. So I understand that. But I think shooting ourselves in the face isn't going to fix SB 54. And I think that not getting ourselves square hear on the initiatives and the ability to make those changes and fixing this. I think it just does further damage to us. So, and that's what's so great about America is we can come on and we can share and learn from each other. And this has been a great dialogue. Thank you both so much for being here. Rob, you're really, really appreciate you. And we will have you on again. And we'll have you on. Thanks so much.
We're out of time, but this was a great discussion. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And remember, you are the guardian of your liberty. Thank you. Have a great day.